You know the story of the betrayal by heart. It's 30 pieces of silver, a kiss in the dark, and a guilt-ridden Judas hanging himself from a tree while the priests use his dirty money to buy a graveyard. They taught it to you in Sunday school. They preached it from the pulpit, and they told you it was perfectly documented history. But what they prayed you would never do is turn a few pages over to the book of Acts and put that story next to a completely different, gruesome version of how Judas died. Today we are going to look at the two deadly contradictions about Judas Iscariot that the institution has spent 2,000 years hoping you never notice. In 17th century Amsterdam, there was a philosopher named Baruch Spinoza who was cursed and excommunicated by his own community at 23 years old for doing exactly what we are about to do. He read the sacred text without the institutional filter, counting the seams and looking at the contradictions instead of performing the mental gymnastics required to smooth them over. We are going to apply his method today. Drop your city and country in the comments right now, because I want to see where in the world people are sitting down to finally read what is actually on the page. Let's set the scene with the first massive contradiction. Who bought the field and how did Judas actually die? If you open your Bible to Matthew 27, the story's clean. Judas feels terrible about betraying Jesus, so he throws the 30 pieces of silver into the temple. He then leaves and hangs himself. The priests, not wanting to put blood money into the treasury, take the silver and use it to buy a potter's field to bury foreigners. But now flip over to the book of Acts, chapter 1. The author of Acts tells a completely different story. In this version, Judas doesn't return the money, and the priests don't buy the field. Judas takes the silver and buys the field himself, and he doesn't hang himself. The text says he falls headlong, his body bursts open in the middle of the field, and his intestines spill out. You cannot harmonize those two events. Either Judas threw the money away and the priest bought the field, or Judas kept the money and bought the field himself. Either he hanged himself, or he fell and burst open. The people who compiled the Bible had two competing legends circulating about the traitor's gruesome end, and they kept both, hoping you wouldn't read them on the same afternoon. But it gets worse. And this brings us to the second contradiction, which is where the whole foundation cracks. Why did Matthew write his specific version of the story? Matthew 27:9 explicitly tells us. Matthew says that Judas throwing the silver and the priest buying the potter's field happened to fulfill a prophecy spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. But if you actually go look for that prophecy in the Old Testament, you are going to find a glaring problem. It isn't in Jeremiah. The prophecy about the 30 pieces of silver being thrown into the temple and going to a potter is actually found in the book of Zechariah. Matthew constructed the betrayal narrative specifically to match what he thought was an Old Testament prophecy. And the construction left a seam so visible that Matthew actually cited the wrong prophet. I want to stop here for a second, because I know what some of you are carrying right now. If you grew up in a church where you were terrified to ask questions, where you noticed things like a misquoted prophet or two conflicting stories and were told that your confusion was a lack of faith, I need you to hear this. You were not broken, and you were not spiritually defective. That discomfort you felt in the pew wasn't the devil whispering in your ear. It was your intelligence doing exactly what it was built to do. You were an honest person stuck inside a machine that runs on dishonesty, and your doubt was just your moral immune system working perfectly. Why did the institution hide this? Because the institution needs you to believe the text is a seamless, flawless document dropped straight out of heaven. If they admit that the gospel writers were constructing narratives to fulfill prophecies and getting their facts wrong in the process, then the illusion of absolute perfection shatters. And if the text isn't perfect, you don't need their seminary-trained experts standing between you and the page to interpret it for you. The confusion is the product. Take away the confusion, and they lose their authority. You don't have to defend a book that cites the wrong prophet to force a narrative to work. You are allowed to put the picture down and trust your own eyes. Tell me down in the comments, which of these two facts hit you the hardest? Was it the realization that the Bible literally contains two totally incompatible stories about how Judas died? Or was it the fact that Matthew accidentally cited the wrong prophet while trying to construct his narrative? I read every comment, and I genuinely want to know. And if this video put words to something you've been carrying quietly for years, send it to one person in your life who is still trapped by the curated version. Not to start an argument, just to give them the rest of the page.